But if we can find a way to love ourselves and love one another and even love those that harm us, the world would be a better place. Everyone deserves peace. Everyone deserves love. Everyone deserves to rise. Everyone deserves to thrive.
Welcome to Women We Should Know with international speaker, mindset reset mentor, author, and your host, Lesley Michaels. With audacious honesty and candor, the Women We Should Know podcast presents the wisdom and life-empowering insights of women who are the embodiments of innovation and social evolution. Please join Lesley as she shares potent conversations that will inspire your personal and professional evolutions. Welcome to another episode of Women We Should Know, where we focus on bringing you the voices, the wisdom, the courage of women who are coloring outside of the lines, challenging the status quo by refusing to get into boxes that were created by other people, and who are leading the way in this time of the woman. Even the Dalai Lama has called this the time of the woman. And so it is very exciting and always fulfilling to me to be able to bring these voices to you and to get to have a conversation with them myself. Today, we have an amazing woman, Jennifer Kauffman. She is inspiring impossible transformation. That's caught my interest, I will tell you, ladies. Jennifer is the director and producer of the transformational movie, There's Got to Be More to Life. Okay, women out there, who of us have not said this before, right? There's got to be more to life.com, based on a true story of Jen's journey of rising up from terrorism and childhood trauma, where she went from barely surviving to thriving. She's an executive producer of 2 Emmy and Telly award-winning films, A New Lease on Life, The Canines for Warriors story, and Freedom Isn't Free, The Folds of Honor story. She's an inspirational speaker, best-selling author, award-winning results coach, and founder of the Rise and Thrive movement. There's a lot more I could share, but I'm going to wait. I want to talk to Jennifer about this personally and invite you all to eavesdrop on the conversation. So for now, let's just jump right in. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Lesley. First and foremost, thanks for having me today. It is an honor and a privilege to be with you.
Oh, and I am truly honored. You are so welcome, and I'm truly honored. And I am particularly grateful to you for coming on when you had to do so from your home office, because as an award-winning filmmaker, I know it drives you crazy when someone's mouth moves and then the words come later, or the words come and then someone's mouth moves. So for you to just dive right in and push through anyway, well, that's the women we speak to here. The women who just dive in and push through anyway, even though it isn't just perfect. So thank you.
It wasn't always that way, I might say. As a recovering perfectionist, I would have been scrambling around, rescheduling, and here's the thing, this is what life presented today. I can't control the internet. I can't control different things that happen, but I can control my response.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a huge lesson, at least it was for me, is that, just showing up, giving the best that you've got with what you've got in the moment, right? Is, I think, so important for all of us women as we continue to rise up in our journeys.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I am still a recovering perfectionist. I may well be for all my life. But you say it in the past tense. So maybe you're a few steps ahead of me on the path. And I know there are other women out there that are still suffering from perfectionist syndrome, because it does plague women more than men. What are a couple of tips that you can share that helped you to shift that particular paradigm in your life?
Can I share a quick funny story that will actually answer the question?
One,
So
I love stories here.
I poured my heart into my first book called Shattered. Now, most people would say, you know, that's a negative word, but that's actually how I felt after being, you know, 15 feet from the first of two explosions at the Boston Marathon bombings. But I went on this journey and I wrote this book, which was so cathartic and healing for myself, but I wanted to help other women and other people in the world in particular.
Mhm.
And so I literally gave everything I had to creating this book. And imagine we're about ready to launch. I have a speaking opportunity. I've asked my publisher to drop ship me books so that I can go to the speaking event. And I'm all excited, right? The truck pulls up the driveway and puts down a case of books, and I open them up and I'm like, no, it must be from the sunlight. So I open up the next case and I look at it. Every single picture of me had green hair. Green hair. I was horrified. I am
Oh
sitting
my
in my
gosh.
driveway, actually in my garage, to be honest. I was sitting in the garage crying. I had 1,000 books sitting on a pallet, and I'm about to do
Green
a
hair.
speaking event. Here's what I did. It took me a day to get to this, but then I eventually got to a place of, well, I have a choice here. I don't have any other books. I have a choice. So I could use this to create humor.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, I'm just going to call this the limited edition. So anybody that is privileged enough to get a green copy of the book, you know, you're an important person in my life.
That is fabulous.
But it's like, you know, here's the thing. I've come to understand, and I put it in the past tense. I'm still learning it, Lesley, to be candid. But I like to put it in the past tense because I've made such strides and such, you know, momentum and just showing up and just giving my best. Because, you know, being a recovering perfectionist created a lot of stress for me. And
Mhm.
I really don't want to be stressed anymore. You know, I've had enough
I
stress
hear
that has
you.
happened outside. So
Yes.
yeah, that's why.
Yes. I hear you. Um, Now, you just ran right by something very important. And I know some of the women listening said, when you were 15 feet from what? From what? So can we go back to where Shattered started?
Yeah, Shattered started. So I'm born and raised in the Boston area my whole life. I had never been to the marathon before. Never had a desire to go until this one year. A dear friend of mine asked if I'd accompany her. Her son was running the marathon for the first time. So knowing my way around the city like the back of my hand, I said yes, of course. And these two people were very important in my life. So we made a day of it, and it was actually quite fun. And then we went to the finish line, and we were waiting patiently for my friend's son to, you know, come across the finish line. And he was about a half mile out when the first of two explosions went off. And we were standing 15 feet from the first one. We were also standing just a few feet from one of the young women who lost their life that day. Life as I knew it was over, and my world was shattered in a nanosecond.
Mhm.
And I know many listeners today might feel that way, especially given what we've been going through for the last 2 years with the pandemic. Folks, mine was a bomb. It doesn't have to be a bomb. It can be a loss of a job, loss of a relationship, loss of a loved one, a serious illness. We've all had some form of trauma.
Mhm.
And when you take away the story or the event, we all have something in common. We have a desire to find a way to rise up from that experience,
Mhm.
to create a better life, to live a better life. It's where the whole movie title, There's Got to Be More. There's got to be more to life. And that's, I literally created the film for these times to share the insight and wisdom that I learned 9 years ago so that others could shorten their path to rising and thriving.
That's beautiful. I know you are on a mission for just that. You're a woman on a mission. I love when I meet a woman on a mission. A mission to inspire and to encourage and to empower people to rise. And no matter what their impossible situation is, to know that they can.
Everyone can. If I can do it, everyone can. Yeah, I want to share something, Lesley. I actually get embarrassed almost when people read my bio. I have a lot of accomplishments, but I promise you, those accomplishments came out of rising up from the ashes of some really horrific situations.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm no different than anyone else. So if I can do it, literally anyone can. It just takes a desire and take that first step. And then surround yourself with people who are going to encourage you and support you, because you're going to have moments where you struggle. It's the journey. It's like learning how to fly. You know, you see a baby bird that's just come out of the nest, right? And it wants to fly, and it's trying to get its wings together. And it needs some support. It needs some help.
Mhm.
We all do. We all have these experiences, and when we can unite as women and help each other in whatever we desire in life, wouldn't that be, I don't know about you, but I get chills when I think about it.
Well, that's my whole mission, is to invite women to join together, to rise as one. And I really appreciate what you said about, if we read your bio, you have lots of accolades. Speaking with women the way I do everywhere, a majority of the time, not all of the time, a majority of the time, when I encounter a woman who has many accolades, she also has many battle stories.
Mhm.
And I appreciate you bringing that forward so that the women who are out there listening saying, oh, but I can't, realize, oh no, we're not here because we didn't battle. We're here because we did.
I had a major trauma every 10 years of my life. Every decade of my life, I had a major trauma, at least one. And so
It's quite a rhythm to establish.
yeah, but now I understand. And this, I think there's an important paradigm, an important perspective that I want people to understand and know. I was 42 when the bombings happened. And it was halfway through that year. So I was, 42 and a half, turning 43. And I thought to myself, okay, wait a minute. I'm actually a good person. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I do good in the world. Why are these things happening to me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But when I would ask that question, it didn't come from a place of empowerment. It came from a place of disempowerment, and it came from a place of something must be wrong with me.
Yes. Victim.
Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't classify myself as a victim. Yeah.
Yes.
But that's exactly right. I had victim mentality, even though I would never use the word victim.
Mm-hmm. That's so common. Mm-hmm.
But when I changed the question, something shifted. What if this was happening for me and for my highest good? Now I got to get, and I'll be the first to say, if I was on the other side listening to this, are you crazy? Like a bomb, a death of a loved one, a serious illness, a loss of a job, a loss of a home, all of this stuff is happening for me. Are you crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Hear me out. Hear me out, listeners, because I used to think the same exact thing. However, When I asked myself if this is happening for me, an analogy popped through. When a farmer plants a seed, it's usually steeped in what? Manure, a pile of crap. What if the trauma is just that? It's to empower us to rise up and to bloom the way we are meant to bloom.
Mhm.
And without it, we couldn't rise to our highest levels, to our greatest goods. And it helped me reconcile for myself why I had a major trauma every decade of my life. And universe, God, I'm telling you right now, I've had enough. I don't want any more. I've gotten the lessons. I will teach them now. But I got to see that I've had numerous of these experiences at different levels of in different ages and different levels of my life, but I wouldn't be who I am today without them. I
Mhm.
wouldn't wish them upon anyone ever. But if I had understood some of these lessons early on, I probably wouldn't have needed the bomb to happen in my life, to be candid.
Yes, you'd have gone somewhere else that day. I am on the very same page as you. It's all about asking a different question. Because when these experiences happen, what do you think of this hypothesis? This is my observation, Jennifer. That they don't happen to us or for us, they happen so that we can choose whether it is to us or for us. And we get to
I
choose
love it.
over and over again. Will we rise or will we sink? Will we rise or will we sink? We get to choose.
I love it. And that's exactly it. We're at choice. This is where free will comes in.
Choice point. That's right.
And this is another thing that's coming up for me now. I'm a very spiritual person. And it's like, why, a lot of people will say, but why did God do this to me? Well, God didn't do this to me per se. An
Mhm.
event happened, and I, through my free will, got to choose how I respond to that event.
That's
And
right.
to go back to what you just said, I can choose to rise up from it, like a phoenix
Mhm.
rising from the ashes, or I can allow it to bury me and to be a victim and a prisoner to that trauma for the rest of my life. And it would be no different than having actually being in a jail cell.
Mhm. That's right.
We get to choose.
We get to choose because don't you find that as you speak with people, people who are free in terms of walking around, not in an actual prison, but they have their hearts and their emotions imprisoned.
I did.
Saddest thing.
I I did for the
Oh,
first 2 years.
I couldn't describe that if I hadn't been there.
Yeah.
It's the thing.
I mean, it is the thing. And I realized I'm like, okay, I was 42 when that happened. By the time I'm 44, and I'm like, okay, I'm at a pivotal point in my life. Is this how I want to live for the rest of my life? Do I want to
Mhm.
live the rest of my life in pain and emotional turmoil, scared of the person, of my own shadow?
Mhm.
I'd rather, to be candid, I'd rather not be alive.
Right. Well, that isn't living though, is it?
No. And twice I almost took my life because I was struggling to find my own way to rise up.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm grateful I didn't.
What was that moment? What was that single moment when the light switch came on? And I realize that even after the light switch comes on, there are hard days. We've all been there.
Mhm.
But the light switch has to come on or we can't go forward. What was your impetus moment?
There were two, actually. One was I was leaving a survivor group meeting,
Mhm.
and I was actually pretty good at this stage. Grew up in Boston, as I indicated. Us Bostonians drive crazy. We cut each other off, and we don't think twice about it. right?
Right.
We just do.
Oh, it's so true.
We're crazy drivers. So this particular day, I left the hospital in Boston from the survivor group meeting, and somebody cut me off. But I acted in road rage, something I had never done before.
Oh,
And it was like something switched. And this is where the light switch went off, so to speak.
right.
I was chasing this I perceive it was a gentleman because it was a big truck, like a big big truck. I'm chasing the man down the streets of Boston. Fortunately, he made the light. I didn't. And when I came to a stop at the red light, that rage quickly turned into I was sobbing. And
Mm.
I'm looking in the rearview mirror going, who is this person? And I recognized in that moment there a terrorist lived inside of me. And if I acted on my rage, I'd be no different than the two young men that I had despised at that time.
Mhm. Mhm.
That was a pivotal turning point for me. And I realized, oh, OMG, I have a lot of healing work to do to heal that part of me. That was
Right,
one step. The
right.
second one was this. I was driving to a
Let
family
me
event.
ask you, before you go to
Yeah,
the next
yeah.
one, was that the first time you had let your anger just come out, fully come out?
In an outward setting, yes. In my home, I had experienced it on my own in my home, and
Of
at the time I
course,
was single. But in a public situation, yes.
that was a true Terry Goldman.
Mhm.
Thank you. Now let's hear about the second one.
The second one was I was going to a family event, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but I had to dress for the occasion and stuff. And I woke up and I was having an awful day. I was having a lot of pain. It was 2 years after the bombing had taken place, and I was dealing with more rage, more anger, and I just was like, I just wanted it over. I wanted that chapter of my life over. I wanted to be back into a place where I was thriving again, but I wasn't there, and I couldn't. Here's the irony. I literally received award for gratitude because I express gratitude often. But at this stage, I couldn't succumb to gratitude. What is there to be grateful for?
Mhm.
My whole world was shattered. Like I was in a lot of pain. I had a lot of physical, emotional, mental turmoil.
Mhm.
What's there to be grateful for, right? I
Mhm.
truly wasn't grateful to be alive at that stage. I am now, but I wasn't
Mhm.
then. But here's the thing,
Mhm.
I'm driving to a family event, and I know everyone there it's a happy, joyous occasion. They don't want somebody like me showing up.
Debbie Downer. Mhm.
So I thought to myself as I'm driving along the highway, you know what? If I just flip my car over the median, people will think I just had an accident. No one would ever know. And I take myself and everyone else out of the misery that I found myself in.
Mhm.
Fortunately, four people came to mind, two at a time, as I'm gripping the wheel, driving 100 miles an hour down the highway. And yes, I was driving 100 miles an hour down the highway, about to jerk my car into the median and roll over my car. My mom and my sister came to mind first. And I thought to myself, well, you know what? When we get reunited in heaven, I can justify, they'll understand.
Mhm.
I gripped the wheel tighter, and I'm literally about to jerk it. And then my two young nieces at the time, they were, I think, 6 and 8. And I had no words.
Mhm.
The only thing that came to me was I chickened out.
Mhm.
These two little kids are like my kids.
Mhm.
They're an integral part of my life, and I'm an integral part of theirs. What do I say? Auntie chickened out.
Mhm.
So I loosened the grip and I made a choice.
Mhm.
Whatever it takes, going to find a way to rise, and I'm going to find a way to thrive again. Because I want to be an example to those two kids and to others as well, but mostly those two kids. When life gets tough, you don't quit.
That's right. That's right. It is such a powerful story because it was a story that you were on the front lines, literally. But there are those stories, 9/11, the Boston Marathon bombers, that touch everyone, or at least many millions of people. I am guessing that you frequently encounter individuals who come up to speak to you about how they were impacted by that day.
Yes.
Whether they were right there or watching it on the television. How do you help them to make a different choice? A choice to rise.
Yeah. So what I often say is this. Well, first of all, I like to hear their stories. What was that like for you?
Of course.
I think it's important that we give each other space to share,
Mhm.
because I'm not the only one with the story, everyone. We all have one.
That's right.
There were 264 of us that were physically injured that day, 3 that lost their lives that day, but a whole world was impacted by that day, just like 9/11. And so I first will ask them, what was that like for you? Because I generally want to know their story.
Of course.
And then we'll have a dialogue, and then I'll say this. Here's what I've learned. If we don't find a way to embrace and love each other and find a way to rise collectively as one human consciousness, which means I've got to also embrace those 2 young men that placed the bombs that day.
Mhm.
They're not outside of the spectrum. They're not outside of us. They're a part of us. Now, some people go, how could you ever include them? Great question. Here's the deal. Here's what I learned. I spent 2 years hating those 2 young men, wishing they were dead. Interestingly enough, every time I would have those thoughts, it was like drinking my own poison, wishing they were drinking it.
That's a great analogy. That's a great visual.
And I went into forgiving, kicking and screaming like a toddler, literally.
Mhm.
How do you forgive the unforgivable?
Mhm.
When I did, and folks, it's an experience. I can't tell you what it's going to be like for you. I can only speak to my own. But I was done drinking the poison, guys. I like, that's what we do when we steep in our anger and steep in our rage and don't find a way to rise above it. We are literally drinking the poison, wishing someone else was drinking it. But when I chose to forgive, and again, that was a choice. For me, forgiveness set me free. It was like unlocking the chains to the prison cell that I found myself in.
And I don't imagine it was a choice you made one time on one day and it carried you all the way through.
No. And it frankly, it's a, to me, forgiveness is a tool in the toolbox,
Mhm.
right? It is a life, it is a life. I mean, I got triggered last week from something and I had to go through forgiveness. So guys, this isn't a one and done process.
Mhm.
It is, and and we're coming up on the 9th anniversary in a couple of days.
Yes.
There are still things to forgive.
Mhm.
It's a process, folks. And every time you do it, it's like you restore love on another level. You restore peace on another level. And I want to share that, when I chose to forgive, and it wasn't until I actually did it, that something shifted.
Mhm,
An overwhelming amount of peace came over me, number one.
mhm,
Number two, for the first time in nearly 2 years, I had compassion for two young men that I had nothing but hatred for before.
mhm.
That compassion over time led to curiosity. Who does this? I learned through my research, time later, that these two young men grew up in a city that was bombed. And by the way, some of our soldiers were the ones bombing because we were at war for something. I'm not even sure what it was, to be honest. But
We're always
until
at
we,
war for something.
yeah,
Mhm,
if we don't find a way to embrace and love those that harm and hurt, because here's the thing, they acted out of their hate, and I know what that's like. But if we can find a way to love ourselves and love one another and even love those that harm us, the world would be a better place. And I firmly believe we would stop wars.
mhm.
Everyone deserves peace. Everyone deserves love. Everyone deserves to rise. Everyone deserves to thrive.
And everyone gets to walk the path to that place where they can do that when they can do that.
Exactly.
Everybody gets to walk to that pace where they can understand what that is that that allows us to come back into a unified space. I would like to go to your film. There's got to be more to life. Tell us about that.
So the film came to me through prayer and meditation back in 2019. How can I serve? How can I help humanity rise? And that's what came through, is to share my insights and wisdom from my journey of rising up from the bombings and
Mhm.
what I learned from that and how others can embrace what they're going through.
And where is it being distributed?
Actually, people can, if you go to there's got to be more to life.com, you can access it there. You can also go to jenniferkauffman.com. You can see the trailer. If you're inspired, click on the link, it'll take you directly to the site. It's on a secure platform. People can
Mhm.
stream it. And we don't talk about the bombings per se. We talk about the rising.
Wonderful. And for all of you who are either driving your car or jogging or some other thing, don't worry about it. I will put the links in Jennifer's program notes, just like I always do for all of you, so that you can keep on jogging and definitely keep on driving, well, as safely as you want to. We never know. They might be in Boston. It's a combat sport in Boston to a degree.
It totally is. If you could drive in Boston, I think you could drive anywhere in the world.
Yes, I think so. I think so. What now? You've been through this cycle of every 10 years of trauma, and you've been through the horrific bombing and then the progressive steps toward healing. What is that shiny object that is still out in front of you that you still want to wrap your fingers around? Maybe it's been out there for a while, maybe it's something new. But what is that shiny object that is fascinating you or capturing your attention?
Honestly, it's when I look in the mirror. I look in the mirror and I say, have you done everything you can to help humanity?
Mhm.
It's hard to witness the struggle as somebody who's, endured a lot of struggle. And so for me, the shiny object is what's next? What can I do to contribute, to give back? How can I impart this wisdom to empower others to find their own path and to inspire them that even though it's a challenging journey, it is, I liken it to the road less traveled, but boy, is it worth it. When you get to the other side, it's like a magic carpet ride.
Mhm.
Life becomes more fulfilling. Life becomes more joyful. Life becomes more peaceful. Life becomes more loving and fun. Doesn't mean that it doesn't have challenges. So for me, it's like I now like to use film as a way to get messages out.
Mhm.
So we're working on the second film, which is called There Is More to Life, which is the second part of a 3-part series. And
Mhm.
the third one's called Can't Make This Shit Up, literally.
Love that.
Uh, and we talk about,
We all
this,
have those moments, don't we, Jennifer?
we do.
We all have this. You cannot make this shit up, and you just had to be there. Those
Yes.
two true statements that everyone can relate to.
And when we can just get back to our childlike selves, that's what I've come to learn. As somebody that was, a perfectionist and, somebody who strived to always look good, because on the inside, I didn't feel good. I
Mhm.
was trying to cover up the broken pieces, the invisible pieces of, my shattered self. But there's
Oh, and how many of you out there, women, how many of you can relate to that? That is something that is given to women from the time we are daddy's perfect little girl. That's where the perfection starts. The perfection chasing starts.
and I like to say now, like, I strive for excellence. I strive to be a better woman. I don't need to be perfect. In fact, here's what I've come to understand: the more imperfect I am, the more relatable I am, the more people feel a deeper connection to me, because I'm willing to be vulnerable and to be myself, no matter what that looks like. Started
Well,
this.
when we're ready to be real instead of perfect. Perfect is not real. There's nothing real about it. Barbie dolls were not perfect, but they were presented as perfect.
Mhm.
Yes, it's part of the patriarchy and all of that that goes around. But to learn to give ourselves permission to be real, that is one of the most powerful things I see women doing around the country every day. So congratulations.
We don't need to compete with each other either.
Well, that's a song that I've been singing. And we understand it's patterned into our DNA, it's patterned into our psychology, it's patterned into everything. But if we get off on that, Jennifer, we're going to be on this podcast for another hour. Because that is just the way it goes when we get on that topic. But it is true. It is time for women to cease to see each other as their adversaries.
Mm.
Yes. When are your next films? Are you in production now, or are you in development? Where are you with your next films?
So the second, we had so much footage, amazing footage from the first film. We had over 70 hours of footage. Um, so yeah, we had amazing content. So if you haven't checked out the first film, check it out. The second film will probably come out in September timeframe. And it is a deeper dive from the first one. So the first one is the foundation. The
Mm,
second one deepens the conversation
mhm,
and talks some more about how we can get back to our God-given selves and thriving.
mhm,
Like that's part of our DNA,
mhm,
but we lost it along the way.
mhm.
And now I want people to reclaim it because it's our God-given birthright. Um, and then the third one will come out in 2023.
2023. That's not a bad run. That's not a bad run. Jennifer, thank you for coming on. And I wish you and all of your passion projects so much success. And thank you for just diving right in there, even though the film and the voice were not, the audio and the video were not in sync, congratulations. What a great modeling of what it is that you speak to.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure to be with you today.
Absolutely. And keep us up with those films. What's going on with those films?
I definitely will.
For all of you out there, I will put Jennifer's contact information, the links to her film, the links to anything she wants to give you links to. I will pass it on to you. I will put it in the program notes and you'll be able to go there and get it just as you always are. Don't forget to like, share, comment. And thank you. Thank you for tuning in again today. You are why I do this. You are why we all come together and participate in doing this, is so that we can have conversations with you. And I trust that you got some little nugget today that you can stick in your pocket, pull it out later when you need it. Something that will possibly soothe you, possibly inspire you, whatever it is you need in that moment that you have not arrived.